It must be water pump day because we got another one. This one's a 2007 Toyota Solara 2.4 liter. And this customer wants us to replace the belt as well. Stay tuned. Alright, got another water pump replacement video. It's a 2007 Toyota Solara 2.4 liter. First thing you want to do is disconnect the negative battery cable. It's just going to be a 10 millimeter. Then you want to come down and you want to take the belt off, which you want to put either a 17 or a 19 on this, and that'll get the belt off. I didn't have to mess with that because this guy's belt was broken. I've already got it taken apart a little, obviously. You can see that that water pump is also bad. So the next thing you want to do is take off the alternator. It's right here. It's just going to have a little bolt right here on top of it. It's a 10 millimeter. It's another 10 millimeter holding it on. Then you got to disconnect this electrical connector and the alternator will come off. You can also disconnect this connector way down here that plugs into this, and that'll enable you to move this entire thing up here out of your way. Here's the alternator. There's your 10 millimeter positive connector, your electrical connector, and that's where the wiring kind of clips in there. And then you've got two bolts holding it in, one there and one there. That's going to be these two bolts. The 14 long is on top, the 12 short is on the bottom. They're relatively easy to get to. Once you do that, you want to go ahead and take these four 12 millimeter bolts off of the water pump. That was one of the hardest parts to do because, as you can see, there's not a whole lot of space. If you have the tool for it, there are many tools that can hold the pulley in place for you to get that off a lot easier. So once you get to that point, you can go ahead and remove all of the 10 millimeter bolts and the two 10 millimeter nuts from the water pump. There's also going to be a little bracket on the front side of the vehicle that holds this in. So now I'm going to go ahead and pull this water pump off, I think. Unless there's another bolt in there. Give me 1 second. Okay, it looks like we did have all the bolts out. I just needed to give it a little persuasion with a pry bar. And there she goes. Once again, you want to clean that area as good as you can before you put the new one on. And also, this one, once again, came with one of those paper gaskets that I do not ever use because they pretty much leak every time. Looks like that. I'm not going to be using that. I'm going to be using Permatex, the Right Stuff 1 minute gasket, the gray kind. This stuff has never ever leaked on me. So I'm going to go ahead and put that on the new water pump. Have that over here somewhere. Oh, it's right here. Here's what the new one looks like, nice and clean. So I'm gonna go ahead and get that surface on the engine clean, put some of this on the water pump, and I'll be right back. Alright, and once you get the new water pump on, it should look something like that. It's got 6 bolts in it. Once again, you want to tighten it in somewhat of a star pattern like you would a wheel. Shouldn't be too difficult with there being 6 bolts. Make sure that this bracket goes right here on the front side with the nut on the bottom and the bolt on the top, and then your wires can go back through. Next, you want to put the pulley back on and the alternator. Alright, now you just want to feed those 4 bolts for the pulley into their threaded holes and tighten them up as good as you can. Make sure that there's no play in this one. Definitely feels nice and brand new. Next, we're going to reinstall the alternator. While you got the alternator off, it's not a bad idea to go ahead and tap this metal sleeve right here this way a little bit towards where my finger's pointing, and that'll help you to put the alternator back on easier, because when the bolt goes through here, it's going to tighten the threads through here and it's actually going to pull this in. So if you're reinstalling an alternator that you took off, you want to probably tap that in just a little bit. If you got a brand new alternator, it's probably already flush. Alright, once you get the alternator in place, go ahead and tighten up that 14 millimeter bolt. Then you want to tighten up that 12mm bolt. Then you want to go ahead and plug this back in, and then this is going to go right there with a 10mm bolt. And then you want to tighten this back on right there with a 10mm, and then plug this back in. Once you got those two fasteners in place, you can go ahead and clip this wiring back into its bracket here on the alternator. And don't forget to plug that AC clutch connector back in. Or, I guess that's not the AC because it's right there, but don't forget to plug this connector back in right here. Alright, next you want to go ahead and route your belt. It goes from the crankshaft, from the top of the crank. The smooth side of the belt is going to go up and around the tensioner back towards the power steering pump. You may need to reach your hand around the engine down here to fit the belt around the power steering pump. And then once it goes from the power steering pump, you go over here across the whole top to the alternator, down around the water pump, then turn back around to the AC compressor. And then that nut right there, where my finger's pointing, that is in fact a 19mm. So that's how you're going to get your belt back on. Now we're going to go ahead and fill up the coolant. And don't forget to reconnect your battery. Next, you want to go ahead and start up the engine. If it'll start. Okay. Then you want to turn the climate control system to max heat. And we're going to let the engine run until the temperature gauge gets about halfway. At some point the thermostat will open and it will suck in some more coolant once all the air bubbles are out, and then we can move on to the next step. Once the thermostat opens, the coolant level will likely drop and you may need to add some more. The idea is to wait till you're not really seeing any bubbles like that anymore. The temperature gauge is slowly working its way up there. Don't be afraid to give it a little bit of gas to help it warm up faster. Or if you really want to, you can take it for a test drive. But I find that taking it for a test drive generally takes a little bit more time than just revving it up a little. Because you can do other things like put your tools away while you're waiting for it to warm up. That's pretty much the end of that one as well. Not too terrible, definitely a little harder than that Cadillac was. If you're looking for more just general water pump tips and advice, go ahead and check out my other video on the Cadillac STS water pump replacement. If you found value in this video, go ahead and like, comment, and subscribe. I appreciate y'all, and I'll see you next time.